Hello and welcome to India's World. Today we are going to discuss the state of India-Pakistan ties. Such is the history of our relationship with Pakistan that whenever there is a prospect of the relationship improving, something or the other goes wrong. The recent killing of 5 Indian soldiers and before that the shooting of 4 Pakistani civilians on the line of control, LOC, has led to a further dip in the already troubled relationship. The tension along the LOC, meant to be a sort of a ceasefire line, continues. Jingoism seems to be ruling the hearts and minds of the people of India, and media and strategic experts are calling for war, are saying that talks should not be held. And the same is happening even in Pakistan now. There are demands that there should be no talks with Pakistan at all. There are those who argue that when the 2 prime ministers go to the UN General Assembly in New York later next month, they should not even meet for a cup of tea. Where are India-Pakistan relations headed? Why is the line of control become the line of conflict? How can India-Pakistan relationship be salvaged? To answer all these questions, I have with me a very distinguished panel of experts. We have with us Ambassador Shashank, former Foreign Secretary of India. You were the Foreign Secretary who got Pakistan to say in January 2004 that they would not allow their territory to be used for any kind of activity against India. I thought it was a formidable achievement. So welcome to the show, sir. We have my old friend C. Raja Mohan. He's a distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. But more than that, he's India's foremost foreign policy expert, newspaper columnist, and an author. And we have a very old friend from Pakistan, Beena Sarwar. She's a prominent journalist there, a documentary filmmaker, and a peace activist. And Beena, you're also currently the editor of Aman Ki Asha project, which is a joint project between Jang and the Times of India group. So welcome all of you to this conversation. Let me begin with you, Ambassador Shashank. There have been incidents on the LOC since the LOC was set up. What is so special about the incidents that have taken place this time that, you hear war cries and you have people with quivering mustaches, coming and saying that, we cannot forgive Pakistan for this and we should take a hardline stand?
No, for one thing, these incidents have happened soon after the elections in Pakistan, and statements having been studied, analyzed in India, that Pakistan government, a civilian government, is very keen to improve relations, so they will carry forward the project which was set up by the previous civilian government in Pakistan. So there would be a sense of continuity. But then we remember that in January what had happened, that 2 Indian soldiers had met a similar fate, and now there's 5. So that is one reason. The other reason being that Pakistan has changed its strategy over a period of time, that its commando forces now don't go alone or line of control or anywhere area of conflict or ceasefire. They go along with some other non-government forces who have complete freedom to do what they like, and they may have their own agenda to perform. So that is the second reason. Third reason is, I would say that the army which controls the policies with regard to immediate neighbors like Afghanistan and India has not been coming out very openly as to what is their purpose. In 2004, we knew that there was an army leadership in the country, and at the same time there were civilian participants also with them. And they were all agreed that relationship with India or peace in South Asia was much more important than pandering to tastes of a few small groups of people who wanted greater space for themselves, both in Pakistan and India, because they wanted to change the whole system as to how do we live with each other. Can we live as civilized human beings, Hindus, Muslims, or other communities, or do we have to have exclusive control over the country's
So you're saying that this time it's not clear whether the army is on board on Nawaz Sharif's agenda. But we'll discuss that in a minute. Raj, you've been writing about the line of control. Why is it that the line of control has become a line of conflict? This was meant to be something, it was a confidence building measure. It was meant to stabilize the relationship, but it's become a major source of tension today.
Yeah, I think there is a tragic irony here. I mean, I think 10 years ago, when the ceasefire was negotiated, incidentally by the BJP government, just as the major peace initiative was also done by Vajpayee government. Now, what the violence that we today is so concerned about was a daily, constant, unending feature on the line of control for decades. because that's always the most tensest part, because it is in Kashmir and it was disputed. What the ceasefire initiative that was taken by the BJP government did was to dramatically bring down the levels of violence on the LOC. Yet, what we've seen, I mean, I think it came down fairly rapidly in the first few years. In the last 2 to 3 years, there has been an increase in the levels of violence on the LOC, but it is nowhere near. It's nowhere near what used to be the normal situation. So in some senses, peace has produced its own paradox, that actually there's reduced levels of violence, but each incident gets now a lot more publicity. And that has been used to whip up passions on both sides. Yeah. The second thing, I think all data with the government shows that, look, the infiltration levels have come down. The levels of civilians have killed, that has come down. The number of security forces killed has come down. So yet you have today the mood that has been created in both the countries as if the world is falling apart. Yeah. So I think there is here, it is, I would say, the responsibility for this is with the political leaderships on both sides. I don't want to construct grand theories, it's about somebody trying to disrupt the process. The problem has been, while the ceasefire has worked largely, we've not done enough in the last few years. As things started going wrong, how do we create the right procedures to make sure?
We'll come to that in a minute. Beena, I want to take off from where Raj left, saying that the same things used to happen at a much larger scale earlier. But why is it that both India and Pakistan use soldiers on the LOC and their deaths, prisoners in each other's jails, or fishermen fishing in Sir Creek in the contested waters, as the sole expression almost of their nationhood vis-a-vis each other?
Why is it that they do?
Yeah.
I mean, it's clearly because the security paradigms of both countries are totally upside down. The security paradigms of each country, they need to realize that real security lies with food security, employment, housing, all of that kind of thing, making sure that people don't die of preventable diseases, childbirth and all of that, instead of which all these energies are being focused on conflict.
My question is why?
Well, because that's where they get the money. I mean, there's huge armies on both sides. If they start reducing the military budgets, if they start cutting all of that down, then there are a lot of people on both sides who don't want that to happen. And I think that's one reason. And I think another reason is that both countries sort of thrive on trying to create a negative image of the other and project themselves as the better. So I'm here in India right now. I hear everywhere I see unprovoked firing by Pakistan. In Pakistan, the headlines are saying exactly the same thing, unprovoked firing by India. Each side says that we are totally blameless, other side is doing it. They just don't, I think unless both sides introspect and say, yes, we are to blame also, we have done this wrong, we will fix our own house and, let the other person fix their own house.
Yeah, okay. We need to take a break at this juncture. We'll be back with this interesting discussion after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're discussing the current state of India-Pakistan relationship. Mr. Shashank, do you think this kind of jingoism that we are witnessing these days, with respect to Pakistan, of course, which is a predominantly Muslim country, do you think that this kind of jingoism also feeds into local politics here, particularly the communal politics in this country? What I really want to know is that, do you think this kind of mindless debate, this fretting and fuming on television 24 hours a day, does it move the political discourse in India towards the communal right?
Well, it's a rather difficult subject to come to a conclusion at this stage. I would say that there is a feeling in India, also in many circles in Pakistan, that there is a mindset in some of the fundamentalists that they must have a kind of Islam spread over Pakistan and India, which would be more of the variety of Salafist Islam. And therefore, they must move ahead on that. And this is the best time for them to do it, because the Americans are totally in a fix. They do not know how to extricate themselves from Afghanistan. They have to depend on Pakistan. Pakistan has become a weak structure, weak state. And therefore, this is the time when they should also tell the Americans and the Western world that all
my question was more about Indian politics.
So India also same thing, that this, in India also, many people feel that a kind of a communal harmony, etc., which we have tried to establish, is likely to be disturbed. So there is a fear that is likely to be disturbed by the Salafist type of elements trying to join the hands with the ISI, with the Pakistan army. pushing their people across, pressurizing the Indian public to keep quiet or to move
But
towards
how
a more
come it's the
exclusivist.
BJP which is at the forefront of this jingoism?
No, BJP is only reflecting a viewpoint because earlier we have seen from Kashmir Valley, most of the Hindus had been pushed out, and now something similar is likely to happen in Jammu because we are seeing more and more of these transgressions taking place across Jammu. So there is that fear.
Okay.
But what I am more concerned is not fear only among the Hindus, but the fear among the Muslims,
Yeah.
that there would be no space left for the liberal and more thoughtful kind of Islamic elements.
Okay. Raj, let me ask you a slightly different question. In India, strategic experts often say that the Pakistan army does not want peace with India. It will not let any civilian government improve ties with India. Now, is that a permanent given factor, written in stone, that the Pakistan army will never change and that will always oppose good relations with India?
Firstly, I don't want you to tar all the strategic experts
Okay,
with the same brush.
present company
look.
accepted.
No, I think there are clearly, like, the strategic community is not a coherent group. I mean, that there are competing views and there are competing arguments in terms of how we should deal with Pakistan. What's interesting is the new list of the strategic experts, retired generals and diplomats who kind of written a letter to the Prime Minister saying we should not talk to Pakistan. Many of them were actively involved in negotiating with Pakistan. But suddenly they seem to have discovered this truth that now we can't talk to Pakistan, because if you go back, the very same people, when they were in power, Mr. Vajpayee was negotiating with Pakistan under far more difficult circumstances. In between the Kargil war, as you both of us know, during the Kargil war, there was still a channel of communication that was kept alive. And if you go back to the situation in 98, in 2001, there was no ceasefire, there was a lot more violence, there was a lot more terrorism going on across in the subcontinent. Yet Mr. Vajpayee decided, look, you have to engage your neighbors. So I think if you look at the last 20 years, I think most of our governments, all of our governments actually, including the BJP, including the Third Front, including the Congress, have consistently argued, look, we must find some way of promoting peace with Pakistan. What we've seen happen in the last 1 year is the BJP, the same government, the same people who ran a government that probably did more with Pakistan, now today saying you can't even talk, you can't even meet.
About the perception about Pakistan army.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that look, there is a problem inside Pakistan, how we assess it. But I think it is not for us to decide how Pakistan, I'll just finish, internally how it plays out. For us, we got to engage with what we got. And I think we have a reasonable agenda to work with them. And Nawaz Sharif has opened quite a bit of that space. So I think we should engage, irrespective of what happens inside.
But let me take that question to Beena. Beena, do you think the hold of the Pakistan army over Pakistan's polity, has it weakened? Has it strengthened, or has it remained the same?
So see, when you use words like weaken and strengthen, you'll get people's backs up. So I think it's better to say that are they playing the role they should be playing, which is that they should not be interfering in politics. I think the Pakistan army should not be interfering in foreign policy, economic, and all of that. And also I think that in terms of defense, they need to be taking a line from the civilian government. Now that is not what they've done all these years. I do see a shift happening very slowly and gradually, and I agree completely with Raja Mohan when he says that we've got to take what we have. You have people, you have the army now stepping back in many areas, and I think that with gradually, as this civilian, the democratic political process continues, I think gradually this will happen, but it will take time, and we have to be patient for that in Pakistan, because I see impatience in Pakistan also, frustration in Pakistan also, and also in India. There has to be patience and a recognition that this is a process, and what has happened, the wrong policies of the last so many years are not going to get overturned in just 1 or 2
But it's
terms.
happening. You're saying it's happening.
I believe it is happening slowly and gradually. I believe the Pakistan army has its hands full dealing with a kind of the insurgency, the sort of so-called Taliban and the so-called jihadis who are more fasadis. So I don't think we should even use the term jihadis.
May I take that question to Ambassador Shashank? Pakistan is facing an unprecedented internal security problem, as Beena is pointing out. If you take Nawaz Sharif's 50 days, in the first 50 days, there were 52 terrorist attacks in Pakistan, largely by Tehreek-e-Taliban and their acolytes. So do you think this is forcing a rethink in the Pakistani establishment? I think Pakistani people have already thought about the jihadis and they don't like them. But do you think there's a rethink in the Pakistani establishment about supporting such groups?
I don't think so. Pakistan army knows very well that there are certain groups they should promote vis-a-vis Afghanistan situation to strengthen their long-term strategic interests, and also vis-a-vis India.
But there's a movement between these groups. The same people will be fighting against India, then they will go and join
Against
Tehreek-e-Taliban.
Pakistan as well.
They will not know what is happening inside these groups unless the Pakistan army has infiltrated these groups very closely. And we ourselves would not know what the Pakistan army is doing or what these groups are doing, because we would have to infiltrate both of them very deeply. So what I feel is that what is happening is that so far we knew that the Americans were trying to stabilize Afghanistan in a manner whereby all the regional countries' interests and the global community's interests will be by and large taken care of. Lately, they seem to have given in to the Pakistani demands that they should have the first right of refusal in Afghanistan. Therefore, now it's the struggle between the Pakistan army and this Tehreek-e-Taliban in Pakistan, Haqqani groups and others, whereby though they will be under the control of the army, but at the same time within that control, they will maneuver and try to create difficulties for both the Americans and the Pakistan army. And where does that leave us? We have to be quite clear in our mind that till the Americans withdraw, they will abide by whatever the Pakistanis tell them to do.
Yeah. Okay, we need to take a break at this juncture. We'll be back again with this interesting discussion after the break. Till then, don't go away. Welcome back. We are discussing the current state of India-Pakistan relations. Beena, before we went on the break, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, where does that leave us? Where will that leave us? We've had enough of the army creating Frankenstein's monsters. We've had that, since the Afghan so-called jihad. We had that now with these so-called jihadi fasadis. And you know that they cannot be controlled. Once if you try and do that, you're creating Frankenstein's monsters. So we should have learnt our lessons by now. And I would think the Pakistani army is smart enough to know that.
Yeah. Master Shashank, there's been all-round demand, at least there's been loud demand that no talks with Pakistan. Don't meet the Pakistani Prime Minister in New York in September. You've been a Foreign Secretary earlier. Do you think this is how diplomacy with our neighbors should be conducted, by not talking to them?
Well, what I would say is that talking is better than not talking. Mm-hmm. But talking for the sake of talking is also not a good policy. So once you come to an understanding, and we have kind of possibilities for back channels and all kinds of other possibilities through friends and all that, to find out what is the maximum extent that we can reach. And if this is supposed to be a gradual process, then reach gradually, rather than trying to achieve dramatic results for elections here, for elections there, or things of that kind. So I would only say that in these matters of neighborhood policy, it's much better to assess the situation and then take the steps. Earlier we had taken the initiatives.
What's your assessment of the current situation?
Earlier we had taken the initiatives because our look-east policy had made Pakistanis also follow a look-east policy vis-a-vis us. So we were in a very good, comfortable situation. Now that has changed. Pakistan is following a look-west policy where they are being supported by the whole world. So we have to follow a look-west policy where we have to abide by Pakistanis' primary interests. But we only hope that their primary interest will not mean destabilizing Afghanistan or the whole region. Okay. And that's what, once we come to an understanding on that, we can move ahead.
Okay. Raj, I wanted to ask you, you follow Pakistan closely. Do you think we in India have a strategic vision for Pakistan? The kind of Pakistan we want? And if we have such a vision, is it a vision that is sort of informed by compassion, by sympathy for the problems Pakistan is going through? Or do you think it's a vision which says, we don't care, let Pakistan go down the tube, it's their business?
No, as a realist, I wouldn't try and define a vision for Pakistan. But I think we should have a vision for the region. Mm-hmm. That the subcontinent, which was relatively more advanced than many parts of Asia when independence came, but over the last 6 decades, we've fallen behind. Now, if we want to grow, irrespective of what Pakistan does, if we want to grow, we need to do more trade with each other. We need to open our borders to each other. That if we don't grow, then you're going to have even deeper problems. So simple things like to more security, you want more security, you want more growth, you need to engage your neighbors. Now, with neighbors, I don't think you can take the position. I'll only talk to you, or today I'm Kutti, I'm not going to talk to you. The kind of, the attitudes that we're displaying in the last few years, which is as if it's a favor you're doing to your neighbors. It's not a favor. Look, if I'm saying talk from our self-interest point of view, we need to talk to Pakistan today, and I don't think we can even wait till now, given the crisis on the border today. I would say our two militaries should talk.
Yeah.
And say, look, how do we produce a ceasefire? How do you produce respect for the ceasefire? So this is not a favor you're doing. So what is it that your objectives? My objectives with Pakistan would be that you need to bring back the ceasefire. You need to have more trade. You need to have more visas. Now, if these cannot be done if there is violence going on. But the fact is violence has come down, but it's not come down fully. You have no satisfaction on the Mumbai issue. But yet there is enough space for us to keep talking, keep engaging, and hope that Pakistan will change. Okay. But we can't produce that change.
Okay. Beena, we are lucky to have you here. So tell our viewers, has Pakistan changed in recent times? I was there last year and I found that India is no longer seen as the enemy country. In fact, India is seen as a big economic power and people want to partake of the growth in India. Yeah. There's tremendous emphasis on education. There's an education boom in Pakistan, schools and private universities. The army is not the sole protector of national interest. It's lost its earlier sheen. Do you think that people in India appreciate the kind of changes that are taking place in Pakistan, or they have one stereotypical image of Pakistan?
I think Pakistanis don't appreciate the changes that are taking place in Pakistan either. I mean, also in India. And I think what you said earlier, that you said that jingoism is ruling hearts and minds, I don't even think that's true whether in India or Pakistan, because I've been here for 2 or 3 days in India now and in Pakistan, and I know that the ordinary people, when you meet people, and they, whatever differences they might have with the policies or whatever, they want the two countries to resolve issues. I think the people are far ahead of the governments. The governments are 10 years behind. We were talking about this earlier. The governments and the armies are 20 years behind. Security paradigms, they're totally outdated. So I think that all these changes are happening. I don't think people in Pakistan appreciate the changes that have taken place in India and vice versa, and one of the reasons for that is because we don't allow each other to meet. We don't give each other visas. We make it so difficult. People, I've had people coming to see me now who just wanted to meet a Pakistani. They had never met a Pakistani before. And when Indians come to Pakistan, same thing happens with them. A friend of mine who was walking and his wife was wearing a bindi, they had people coming up to them and offering to buy them cold drinks and juice and drive them here because they thought she's from India. Things like that.
Okay, we're running out of time. What I would like to do now is ask all of you a single question, which is that if you had to do something to improve ties with Pakistan and give a prescription to the government, to the people, what would that be? What should the government be doing and what should the people be doing?
Well, I think we should try to engage the government in Pakistan and keep assessing the situation as it develops, but give them the possibility of improvement of relations, and India should be ready to improve relations with Pakistan.
I would say we should even take a unilateral step and see whether they reciprocate or not. That's a good way of testing what they do. Once you bring down the military temperature, then there is space for diplomacy. But the first step is stop firing across the LOC.
Okay, Beena, both of them are advising the government.
Now, and I completely agree with them.
But what's your advice to the people? What should the people be, the ordinary people, if there's such a difference in their views and that of the political leadership, what should ordinary people be doing?
They will do what people do when the time to vote comes. They will vote for the government that is talking, which is speaking their language, which is the language of peace. And I think if the governments were smart, the visa regime that they agreed upon, they would immediately implement it. 14th August, 15th August would have been a great time to say, कि अब वो ये हो गया है, this is the visa regime we agreed upon. Let's do it. Let's do it for the divided families. Let's do it for the youth of our countries. Let the youth of India, let them visit Mohenjo-daro and Harappa and Hinglaj Mata in Balochistan, and let the people from come to for whatever reasons. Let them drive across. Let them cycle across. There's a group of Delhi University students. They're being stopped at the border because they're not getting visas to go to Pakistan. You can't cycle across the border. You can walk, but you can't cycle. But visas are such a huge big problem. So I think you open the visas now, let the people meet, and you will see what a big difference that makes.
Okay, we've run out of time, so I thank all of you for coming to our studios and analyzing the present situation for our viewers. Thank you very much, and I hope we'll meet in better times and all those things that you're saying would happen. That's all we have for you today. We'll be back again next week with another interesting issue. Till then, goodbye.